Choices in video games can carry more weight than any other medium, mainly because it's you making the decision, locking off certain storylines, gameplay paths, even entire character builds. As a network of escapist possibilities, most of us will do something we usually wouldn't in real life, just to see what'll happen. When it comes to lying in games though, it is very rare a game actually calls you out on it, guilting you for dishonesty, punishing that lack of truth, factoring a fatal choice into an endgame that until then was something only you knew about. The consequences range from trivial to fatal, but regardless, these characters aren't going to let you get away with it. I'm Scott from WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 video games that knew you lied. Number 10. Promising Clementine you'll look for her parents. Telltale's The Walking Dead. Telltale's The Walking Dead tried to make your choices matter as much as feasibly possible, but far away from its many life or death decisions, the first season's 4th episode Around Every Corner set players up to get caught in a lie. And worse still, it's a lie to a child. At the very end of the episode, 8-year-old Clementine asks protagonist Lee if they have time to search for her missing parents. At this point, players have 3 options. They can either flat out refuse, say they're not sure if there'll be enough time, or lie and promise Clem they will. If you lie to Clem, she'll reiterate her question, at which point Lee looks sheepishly around the room and Clem devastatingly replies, "I knew you didn't mean it," before breaking down in tears. To rub salt in the wound, the game even displays the text "You lied to Clementine" to remind you of your misdeed. Number 9. Elizabeth Knows You're Not Going to Paris. BioShock Infinite. The third BioShock game revolves around protagonist Booker DeWitt, who retrieves the imprisoned Elizabeth from captivity at the start of the game with the promise of taking her to Paris, even though he's actually taking her to New York City, planning to trade her in order to settle his debts. Midway through the game, as you depart on your journey, Elizabeth hilariously manages to see completely through that deception. As you start charting the course, Elizabeth notices that the coordinates you've entered are for New York rather than Paris, and immediately calls you out on it. To make it even better, Booker seems totally dumbfounded that Elizabeth, who he evidently underestimated, would know anything about coordinates, before she reminds him that she had a lot of free time to study various subjects while she was locked away. Elizabeth starts crying, but as Booker attempts to comfort her, her feelings turn to anger and she smashes him over the head with a wrench. Totally deserved. Number 8. Sleeping with the Enemy. Papers, Please. Centered entirely around deception, Papers, Please casts you as a border-crossing officer in a fictional dystopian state, but you get to decide whether or not immigrants are allowed into the country. Eventually, you'll come to learn that a resistance organization called the EZIC is plotting to stage a coup against the government, and it's entirely up to you whether to cooperate or not. The game has a possible 20 endings, and those who only complete a handful of tasks to help the EZIC, the key being not all of them, can have their lack of commitment revealed at the game's end. With the right conditions throughout the story, your ending will see you dragged before the terrifying government investigator M. Vonal, who will note that your traitorous behavior has been discovered, with at least one EZIC member throwing you under the bus during a confession. You're then carted off to prison to await execution later that night, and that's the end of the game. Number 7. Valerias Interrogation. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. In Modern Warfare 2's chapter El Sin Nombre, you're captured and brought before one of the game's primary antagonists, cartel leader Valeria Garza, aka El Sin Nombre herself. What follows is an interrogation sequence in which Valeria asks the player a series of questions, which basically serves as a pop quiz on your experience so far. At the start, Valeria loudly demands that you tell the truth, implying severe consequences for failing to do so. And as the player, you're given 4 options, representing truth, lying, antagonizing, and simply making no choice at all. If you pick the lie or even genuinely get a question wrong, Valeria will respond by asking a follow-up to gauge precisely what you're trying to do. Tell a second lie and she'll just shoot you dead. The game makes it pretty clear up front that the only way out of this situation is to tell the truth, so you've really only got yourself to blame if you start telling porky pies. Number 6. Cartman Knows How You Got the Basement Code. South Park: The Fractured But Whole. South Park's criminally overlooked RPG sequel takes a lot of pleasure in poking fun at the very nature of video games themselves, specifically the requirement for players to go about objectives in a certain order. This pays off hilariously in the game when you need to figure out the keypad code for Cartman's basement, which can be found in his journal. Players who simply look up the answer in a guide will get a brilliant response though. After entering the code 307, Cartman will pop up in the top right corner of the screen in the guise of New England Patriots coach Bill Belichick, calling the player out. He'll say, "Hey Tom Brady, you want to play the game or do you just want to be known as a smug cheating bitch the rest of your life?" Try to then enter the basement again without looking in the journal first, and you'll get an additional snide comment from Cartman assuring players that their dishonest approach to playing the whole game is being noted. Number 5. Youre Not Russian. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. The original Modern Warfare 2 featured an infamous mission called No Russian, in which players control undercover CIA operative Joseph Allen as he takes part in a terrorist attack in an attempt to gain the trust of Russian terrorist Vladimir Makarov. The mission involved joining Makarov and his men during a grim massacre at a Russian airport, where players can either choose to participate in gunning down hundreds of civilians or leave it to the real terrorists. Either way, the chapter ends the same, with Makarov revealing that he knew Allen was undercover all along, before shooting you dead and escaping the scene. Leaving an American corpse at the site of the airport massacre then suggests American involvement in the attack and prompts Russia to declare war on the United States, as Makarov had planned it all along. Allen's undercover gambit was always going to be a supremely risky one, and while you've got no option but to get caught at the end of the level, it makes for a hugely shocking punchline to one of gaming's all-time most infamous levels. Number 4. Twotiming Yennefer and Triss, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. A masterclass in RPG choice and consequence, The Witcher 3 loves to subvert expectations and trip you up at every turn. Case in point, players might find themselves unable to resist the temptation of romancing multiple love interests at the same time. Aiming to get increasingly closer to Yennefer and Triss, take this far enough and you'll actually manage to set up a threesome. However, on the night everything is supposed to happen, both lingerie-clad ladies tie Geralt to the bed and then drink the wine themselves and take their leave. To make it even funnier, Geralt is stuck until the next morning, where he's saved by best buddy Dandelion, saying, "Oh Geralt, how little you know about women. Did you really think you could have them both?" Turns out this isn't Mass Effect. Number 3. A not-so-dead ringer. Team Fortress 2. Those who take the support role of the spy in TF2 will get a number of nifty abilities, such as Dead Ringer, allowing the player to cloak for 7 seconds on receiving damage while leaving behind a fake corpse intended to fool players on the opposite team. However, there's one easy tell which will give the whole thing away. The fake corpse also leaves behind a fake box of ammo, which while looking identical from a distance, doesn't actually give you anything, or make any standard ammo acquisition noise when walked over. Team Fortress 2 players today are savvy enough to give spy corpses a massively wide berth, and only trust an opponent is really dead if their ammo drop is legit. Number 2. The Riddler Knows You Used a Guide, Batman Arkham Asylum. Perhaps the ultimate test of your mettle in Batman Arkham Asylum involves hoovering up all 240 of the Riddler's trophies scattered around the island. Doing it the hard way, that is without any outside assistance, is incredibly difficult and time-consuming, enough that the vast majority of players used YouTube or online guides of some form to speed up the process. Developers Rocksteady were clearly well aware that people would do this, and so once you've collected a certain amount of trophies in quick succession, you'll get a hilariously frustrated message from the Riddler himself. Riddler will straight up accuse you of cheating, saying, "What, you're nearly done? Are you cheating? Looking them up on the internet? Tell me." Later on, getting even more annoyed. Riddler will then say, "I'm losing patience, you are cheating, you must be." To be honest, we all were. And number 1, Darth Malik Knows Who You Really Are, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. Spoilers for the original KOTOR. The game that helped put BioWare on the map, KOTOR asks every player, is something really a lie if you absolutely believe it with all the conviction in your body? After all, the player wakes up at the start of the game as an amnesiac and then trains to become a Jedi, a lie that doesn't fool the game's primary antagonist Darth Malik much at all. At the very end of Knights of the Old Republic, Malik reveals he's more than aware of what's been going on. That you are the talked about mysterious Jedi Knight Darth Revan, who after being left for dead by Malik, had their mind wiped by the Jedi Council before the game began. It's a reveal genuinely shocking to the audience and to Revan themselves, adding a genius layer to any second playthrough or rewatched cutscene. Knowing the entire time that Malik is aware of your true nature is one of the greatest bait and switches in gaming history. And that's our list for various video games that knew you lied. Let me know your favorites down in the comments below, and please subscribe to the WhatCulture Gaming Podcast. For now, I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com, and I'll catch you soon.